Hello and welcome to episode number 5 of Circuit Superstars Physics. As episode number 2 gained the most interest up until this point, this is a continuation of what we've learned in episode number 2. So in episode number 2 it was all about how much fuel do I save if I don't press the throttle by 100% like this, but instead go like at 75% or 50. Yeah, and we've seen that we do save a lot of fuel if we don't push the throttle to 100%. So this episode is about giving an example how you might benefit from knowing this. So the setup is that we are going to drive with GT on Sugar Hill. We are going to do 5 laps, and we are going with fuel consumption of 300%. Later on we will also have another setup. So let's start with this. And as I said, Sugar Hill, and you have a look at how much fuel we need in the first lap. So basically what you will see is that it's hard to drive this without, or that you would think that it is impossible to drive this without a pit stop in between. So we use like 25 per lap. So now after 2.5 laps we are already down to 35 fuel, and we need to pit, of course. So this will take some time, and we will need to fuel up to 50 so that we are able to do the last 2 laps. So now we are finishing this race with close to 0 fuel, 5, and we had a best lap time of 22.9 and an overall race time of 2.8. So this time we used the exact same setup of before, but this time I will try to go like 85% on the throttle all the time to save a bit of fuel. And let's afterwards compare what's quicker, going full throttle and pitting, or going 80-90% throttle all the time and no need for a pit stop. So obviously I won't do this perfect, so sometimes I will probably go to 100, sometimes I will be below 80, but on average I will try to consume 20 fuel per lap so that we have a representative number to compare our time against. Heading into the last lap we are at 18 fuel, so I pushed a bit too much, but that's fine, I guess. We just want to get a feeling. As always, this is just to give you an idea about the physics of this game and not to be like 100% precise. So we finished with a best lap time of 23.5 and an overall race time of 2 minutes and 2 seconds. So in our last attempt we've seen an example of how to save time by not going on the throttle 100%, but after trying this with 5 laps and 300% fuel consumption, I was curious about the fact whether this only is viable if you have fuel consumption set to a very high level. So with a factor of 3 we are trying the same again. So this time the fuel consumption is 3 times lower and the laps are 3 times as much as before. Let's see whether the strategy is viable in this situation as well. So first we are going to try to go with 100% throttle, and in our second attempt we will go with 80 to 90% throttle and then compare the times. So finishing lap 1 with 8 fuel consumed, which is what we would have expected, because last time we had like 25 something, so it's exactly or very close to a factor of 3. So we've just finished lap 6 and we are down to 50% fuel, which shows that we obviously need to pit. And as we use like 8 or let's say 9 per lap, and we've now done 7 laps, we need 8 times 9, so like about 70 fuel for our last stint. So now on the last lap we will finish the race with a bit of fuel left, which is fine to have some safety margin. So overall race time 5:56. So now exact same setup, 15 laps, 100% fuel consumption, but now I will try to do 80 to 90% fuel, not fuel, throttle, and see whether it's enough to not pit. Well, of course that's the target. So we have 15 laps, so if we use a bit more than 6 per lap, so we just used 7 times 15 is 105, so we should aim for like 6, maybe a bit more than 6, then we are good to go. So after 10 laps we used 64, so about 6.4 average, which is exactly what we are aiming for, because we need to, if we use 6 per lap we will end up with the 90 fuel, and if we use 7 we would end up with 105, so we are very happy to stay between 6 and 7 fuel per lap. So we are in the last lap, we are down to 4 fuel, and we will finish the race with 1 or 0, I guess. Yes, so we've been quite efficient and keeping the fuel consumption between 6 and 5, and our overall race time is 6 minutes 6 seconds. So let's have a look at the results. Of course, I also did 10 laps, not just 5 laps or 15 laps. And let's start with the top 300% fuel consumption. That's the one I started with. So we've seen that in that case we did gain time by going off the throttle a bit and not going into the pit. It was about 6 seconds, and with 10 laps and 150% fuel consumption, in my test at least, I was pretty close no matter what I did. With 15 laps and only 100% fuel consumption, the strategy with pit stop was significantly faster. So overall, you can say that the shorter the stints, the better the chance that this strategy works out. And of course, higher fuel consumptions favor the strategy because they will cause shorter stints. So if you want a rule of thumb, definitely look for this strategy if a stint is quite short. In this case, In the very first part, the stints were 2 or 3 laps in the strategy with 100% fuel throttle, and yeah, so that definitely worked out. Overall, I think that in most races this strategy will not be used because stints are just too long. But definitely have a look at it if you want to avoid a pit stop and want to reduce the overall pit stops by 1. Always look out for this strategy. Thanks for watching, and as always, leave a comment if you think I missed something, if I made a mistake, or you want to propose another test. Please leave a like and leave a sub. That really helps. Thanks.